Building a wrestling organization from the ground up is not the easiest thing to do, and not all companies can be as successful as WWE or AEW has been, because not all wrestling companies have the financial backing or the TV time that these bigger companies have. But allow me to tell you the story of a company that was supposed to last for only one show, then moved on to 1 year, and not only did they manage to surpass the one show and the 1 year mark, but they became the #1 innovator of Japanese professional wrestling death matches. However, only to fall and crumble at the feet due to so many problems inside the company. This is the story of the rise and fall of FMW. Before we get to the formation of the FMW, we need to talk about the founder of the company, Atsushi Onita. Onita was born on October 25th, 1957, having a relatively normal childhood, and he was not even supposed to become a professional wrestler. In fact, he was destined to go into the family textile business until his father passed away in 1973. And with Onita only being a teenager at the time, he decided that he was going to quit high school and become a professional wrestler, which isn't the best job to get money from, considering that you get paid very little when you first start out in the business. Onita would write a letter to Japanese wrestling legend Giant Baba explaining his current living situation, and this letter did him well, as he would be the first student at the then new All Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo. Japanese wrestling training is said to be incredibly hard, with trainees doing 1,000 squats and 500 push-ups just to warm up, not to mention the constant hazing that trainees usually had to go through. But Onita went through it all so he could support his family. And a year later, at only the age of 15, he would make his pro wrestling debut, and he would begin working all over the country. Onita would do the typical work of a young lion, which includes working the opening matches and often jobbing to more established stars, not only to pay his dues, but so that he could learn from veterans in the business. One day, while working a show in the Dominican Republic, Onita had told the booker of the show that he had refused to job to someone because he deemed his opponent lesser than him. So, to teach Onita a lesson, the booker had him jumped by some wrestlers backstage. Onita was severely beaten on that day, and with nowhere really to go, especially with the fact that Onita was far away from home, he went to one of the few people that he knew he could trust, and that was Terry Funk. Onita would end up living with Terry Funk in his famous Double Cross Ranch in Canyon, Texas for a little bit as he was healing up from his injuries. It was here that Onita's life would change as Terry Funk introduced him to the world of hardcore deathmatch wrestling, which Onita would be fascinated with. Not only the violence, but just the fact that you would even have to be pinned by the count of 10 to win a match. And once his injuries were healed, Terry Funk started booking Onita to work all over Memphis. Only this time, Onita was starting to wrestle a more violent and brawling style that would eventually go on to form FMW. All healed up and wanting to continue to work the hardcore deathmatch style, Onita wanted to bring this specific kind of wrestling back over to Japan, as nothing had ever been seen like it at all in the country. Onita returned, and now with his skills that he learned all over the world, he started to make a name for himself. However, Onita would be forced into early retirement after one night during a show. Onita slipped on some water and he injured his knee pretty badly. After staying out of action for 3 years, doing odd jobs as well as going to prison, and no one really knows why he went to prison. He's really strange about it, like he doesn't want anyone to know about it for some reason. Onita finally had the urge to make a comeback. Bizarrely, Onita made his return to the fighting world by going up against Masashi Aogi in 1989 at the World Karate Association, but would find himself being disqualified for using wrestling maneuvers in the karate fight. Say what you will about Onita, but he was a total and complete utter worker. The fight itself would end up grabbing a lot of mainstream attention, and the rematch between the two would lead to the formation of the FMW, which stands for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. And the sole goal of FMW was to put professional wrestlers up against real fighters to show who exactly is the toughest and the strongest between the two, and not just that, but to show that professional wrestlers can hold their own up against professional and legit fighters. Naturally, people wanted to see Onita and Aogi beat the shit out of each other, and this was only supposed to be a one-off show, especially with the fact that Onita had only $400 to produce the show entirely. The fight between Onita and Aogi would happen on October 6, 1989, and it was the main event of the show. Aogi would end up winning the fight, but Onita would not have any of it. And, well, he wouldn't let the bell ring to acknowledge his loss, which would lead to a huge brawl between the karate fighters and the pro wrestlers just to end the night. Even though Onita lost in the main event, the show itself did gangbusters, drawing over 1,000 fans. And that's not bad, considering that the show was made up on a budget of only $400. Onita knew that he couldn't let this momentum die, so instead of having a one-off show, he decided that he was going to extend the FMW to go on for one more year. FMW also started to adopt hardcore wrestling with bloody and brutal violence, which had never really been seen before in Japan, which made it very successful early on. FMW also had an up-and-coming women's division, which at the time made it the first professional wrestling company in Japan to have a men and women's division simultaneously. And it was said that the women on the FMW roster were so fierce that women wrestlers from other companies didn't want to face them at all. Say what you will about FMW, but that's how you create a dominant women's division, by having no one want to go up against them. FMW was unique, not only in the fact that it was one of the only promotions to do and innovate Japanese death matches, but they also had a weird yet one-of-a-kind style for characters, like Freddy Krueger. Yes, Freddy Krueger, the child molester, turned to pro wrestling because I guess he must have gotten bored haunting people's nightmares. There was also Super Leatherface, another horror icon who decided he was going to do professional wrestling on his off time, aside from murdering young horny teens. But aside from those characters, there were a lot of famous names that managed to wrestle in FMW, like Chris Jericho, the Great Sasuke, Mick Foley, Sabu, Taka Michinoku, and Genichiro Tenryu, just to name a few of the greats that have performed in the company. However, with all this success, Onita knew that he needed a star to center his company around, and they would ultimately find their star in an unexpected way, and this is where we end part 1 of the rise and fall of FMW. Now you're going to want to sit tight for the next episode as it explores the unmitigated star of FMW Hayabusa and the ultimate fall that the company would have. But in the meantime, do me a favor, guys, let me know what you thought about this in the comments section below and what you think about FMW as a whole. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I'll see you guys as soon as I can. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. I've been Samuel V, aka The Excellent Reviewer, and I'll see you all as soon as I can. Goodbye and good night. Bang!